Any questions? Yeah. Okay. Welcome back to the current review on Central News Live. My name is Thamsanqa Tu, sometimes known as TT, sometimes known as Chairman. Man, you are comfortable with any of this, call me whatever you want. Today being the 10th of September, we are on episode number 52 of the current review. There's some controversy happening in the Free State. The office of the Premier of the Free State, led by MaQueen Letsoha-Mathae, has served notices of termination of contracts for over 100 employees in that office. And as expected, this has raised feathers and brows for a lot of people, especially the unions representing workers in that particular department. And today we are going to be speaking to Aubrey Nappie of the PSA in the Free State. He's the provincial manager there. We will delve into this controversy and what is it that the PSA thinks that can be done differently, as they have strongly objected to this thing, citing potential legal violations, and has called for an urgent meeting with the Premier. Please join us as we unpack these concerns and what other political mechanizations can come out of this. Let's please join with us, and as we speak to Ntate Aubrey Nappie. Good morning, Ntate Nappie. Could you please give us a background on the recent termination of these employees by the Free State Premier, and why has the PSA felt so necessary to intervene on behalf of these members?
Thank you so much, and yes, good morning to your listeners, to your viewers. We actually approached last week by our members, who came here obviously very stressed that they've received letters that remind them that their contracts will be coming to an end at the end of September. Now, what is strange about it is that, some of these members, if not all of them, were reminded of something they were not told before. So that was the first thing that was quite worrying for us, that how do you remind people if they were not given notice before? But a bigger issue here for us is the fact that this action or conduct by the Office of the Premier is unlawful on various counts. And we felt, let's engage them. Let's write them a letter, which you have referred to in your introduction, to obviously find out what led to this. Because if it's our view that these people have been employed, for some of them over 13 years, 14 years, some of them, if not all, are already enjoying all the other benefits enjoyed by other employees in the department. So our concern was that this action doesn't make sense. Hence, we wanted to engage the Premier, and hence that request to meet the Premier, so that we can determine the route forward.
But is it not something in their contracts that says that your contract ends on a particular date?
We asked the same question with this that you're asking to these employees. And, the short answer, no, there's no such contract that says that their contracts end on the 30th of September. Remember, the only thing they got was a 2-paragraph letter that notifies them and saying that we are reminding you that your contract comes to an end. So the information we got from the members was that, listen, I've been employed in this department for the last 13 years. For the first 10 years of the 13 years or 8 years, there's been nothing. And then subsequent, and it's a lot of them. So they've got different experiences of this whole process. So hence I'm saying that, no, from where we're standing and those members we spoke to, there's no such contract or agreement that says that the contract must come to an end.
And you are also citing potential violations of Section 198 of the Labour Relations Act. Could you elaborate on these concerns, and why do you believe these terminations might be unlawful?
Well, we cited that specific provisions of the Labour Relations Act because The Premier's office is aware of a similar matter that went for arbitration last year in February, where some of the members actually took the matter to the bargaining council, and they were successful in their dispute that their employment is indefinite. So we refer them back to that because the details of those employees and these ones now is exactly the same. And we also informed that the Premier's office did not review that decision of the arbitration or of the commissioner. Now the question was then to say, but if you already know that this matter was dealt with under this particular provisions of the Act, why then would you want to repeat something like this? But the long and short, really, when it comes to the unlawfulness, it just not ends there. The Constitution of South Africa is very clear when it comes to the right to a fair labor practice. And we believe this is actually an unfair labor practice on the part of the employer. So employees must be treated fairly. That's a constitutional right. But also you cannot just terminate someone's employment in the way that they will go about it. There are other provisions of relevant law that says that there are certain processes that needs to be followed, which in this instance, we have the view they were not followed.
Mm. And you have also stated earlier that you've written a letter to the Premier requesting a meeting. Has there been any response to that request?
Yes, indeed, we wrote a letter. We got a response from the Premier indicating that, listen, we are busy looking at possibilities and strategies. We will engage labor and the affected employees. We actually today subsequently wrote another, response to that response, because we found that response quite vague. Number one, we asked two things from the Premier. We asked for a meeting. Their response does not address the fact that whether we're going to have the meeting. Number two, we asked that they must withdraw those letters up until such time that we've engaged on this matter and the parties can collectively decide on the way forward. Their response does not address the withdrawal. So we've actually written to them and said, listen, your response to our initial request for a meeting does not address those things. But here's the worrying factor. The employees are still very uncertain about what's going to happen on the 30th. The response from the employer does not help, does not assist at all. It makes things worse. They don't indicate when are they intending to engage labor, which is the unions, or the affected employees. They're also not saying anything about those letters. So no one knows what's really happening. And that to us is problematic. And I already mentioned the fact that some of these people, if not all of them, have been there for ages. Mm-hmm. Now you're sitting with this letter, you don't know what's going to happen after the 30th of September. That should be a very stressful experience for any person.
And given the economic conditions that we find ourselves in as a country, I imagine that there must be an extreme emotional toll on these employees now, given that they are informed that they are about to be unemployed, to join the ranks of the unemployed. Have you had to deal with any of these emotional issues from these workers?
Absolutely. I can give an example of one of the members who came to see me, and he said to me, listen, I am 64 years old, where will I get employed? Where will I ever get? I've spent about 14 years of my life working in this department. So number one, it's not just the fact that they will be unemployed with all the other things that go with that. It's the fact that they might not even have a chance to be employed anywhere else. And yeah, the stress is definite. It's very, very distressful for them. There's a lot of anxiety, which is caused by the situation, but more by the lack of communication on the part of the employer. Because now that the employers are aware what that notification has created, one would have expected them to at least engage these employees and say to them, this is what's happening, this is how we're going to deal with it. But the silence and the vague responses, the two-liners and one-liner responses is not helping the situation.
And that silence could also lead to many speculations, as I have seen that there are allegations that this could be politically motivated, given that many of these employees are from the former era of the two premiers, Mema Ntombela and Tate Makashule. Could this be the motivation that these people are being terminated from their work, from their workplaces, that they represented a different era of politics than to the current one?
If you ask the members why is this happening, and that's exactly what they're telling you, and we can't blame them and say, listen, because remember, even on those very same notification letters, no reasons are being given on why the terminations. Is it based on operational requirements? Is it based on whatever? But yeah, surely. So it's open to those type of speculations. And in fact, that's what the members will tell you, that our understanding of the process is that Rebatomaga is Makashula, and as a result, that's why people are getting rid of us.
And besides yourselves, you have other unions, such as those aligned to the ANC, like Nehau, voiced any support or opposition to the PSA stance on this issue?
Look, at this stage, we have not received anything formal from them, but we've got no doubt that, as labor organizations, they would also find this type of, conduct unlawful for the interest of their members. Normally we do, when there's common issues that we are facing, even if we are different unions, we do collaborate and we do work together to ensure that, members' rights are protected. We don't work in competition because it's not about us as individual unions, but it's about the rights of those people that are affected by the type of action. For an example, what we're facing. I have seen, one or two other unions raising issues. I think NAPSO or so have raised issues where I've seen communication from the members. So I do believe that even in the House and whoever has got members there will definitely find strong objection with this type of things. I'll be surprised if people are going to accept it purely on the basis of their allegiance or alliance to the ruling party.
What options, are there for the PSA and its members? Is it the thing of workers going to the streets to voice their protest to this, or is it going to be, taking on legal processes this issue?
The reason we've put the Premier and requesting the meeting and requesting the withdrawal, and we hope that the Premier's office is going to react to that request, is for us, the next step will be to interdict this action, is to engage our legal department to look at the possibility of interdicting the action through the court, because we believe that there are grounds for such an interdict, as this action is unlawful.
And beyond the immediate issue of contract terminations, what does the PSA believe needs to change in the Free State's labor policies to prevent the similar situations arising in the future?
We are concerned, generally, I think we are concerned with the way the provincial government has been dealing with perhaps with some of these labor issues. And I think I must also admit that there are forums where these matters are being ventilated, from our provincial chambers and even in some departments, there are departmental structures where labor and the employer sit around the table and they try and ventilate. We also refer matters of individual rights to the CCMA or the relevant collective, the bargaining councils. But your question really, if I want to answer it in such a way, is that we are just concerned. I mean, all of these things happens, after the well-publicized contempt findings against the Premier with one of the HUDs in the province. And that is worrying because, once you're found to be in contempt of court for something that has to do with labor matters or labor rights, it is concerning for us, because then it perhaps reflects the perception, or it reflects also on how the provincial government views the rights of employees. So, I don't want to generalize at this stage, but it is really, really a concern for us that we wouldn't want a situation where things are going to get worse. We hope that this engagement with the Premier will also provide us an opportunity where we can address our concerns with her, or with her office, which can also then be, translated to other different departments. But for now, I think the big issue is this 100 and over 100. We got a number of 104. Some are saying it's 126 people that are being affected by this termination.
And in their statement, I see that there's a part where they speak of that these employees that are affected have had their contracts being renewed every year or so, and therefore there's been a perpetual renewals of contracts, necessarily meaning that these people have not necessarily been permanent employees of the government. Now, this is part of the policies that I think unions as well as the employer should look at how to deal with certainty of tenure as employees.
Absolutely. And that very same provision of the Labor Relations Act that we're citing in our letter talks specifically to those continuous renewals and what the law says about it. I mean, it will be very unfair, and employees are being protected against those type of continuous renewals and keeping people on fixed-term contracts, because then the law would then say that if it happens in that form, then there is a clear expectation of permanent employment. And hence we are saying these people that we represent are actually permanent. If you look at the tenure, if we look at, for some of those that were lucky to get those renewals, but you can't keep people continuously on fixed-term contracts. I mean, they've got families, they must plan their futures. The case I referred you to about the 13 years, the gentleman that's 64 years, I mean, the department is paying his pension fund with GPF. So why would you pay someone else's pension fund and you still consider them to be in a fixed term? What type of contract is that? So all of these things we need to really get clarity with the Premier.
Dr. Nappie, thank you very much for your time. We hope you guys resolve this on behalf of all the affected workers and their families, I presume, because if there are 150, there must be, a multiple effect in terms of how many people are affected about this. All the best.
Thank you so much, Thamsanqa, and thank you so much. Much appreciated for the time.
Thank you. That was Aubrey Nappie of the PSA, the provincial, the Free State Provincial Manager, talking about the recent spate of contract non-renewals in the Free State government, in the office of the Premier. We will be back with another one. We are for now.